Hey, 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 welcome back. Welcome back. Conversations, and today's conversation is about revival. When death knocks, it's revival time. When death knocks, it's revival time. And I want to share with you about experiences in my life where death was knocking. In 2009, at 26 years old, I got married. I got married intentionally. And one of the vows that we all take in marriage is till death do us part. Till death do us apart. And I love marriage, the idea of marriage. My parents were married for 40 plus years, so I saw how relationship works. I was a school teacher, and in that system, working with children, I'm actually back in working with students in a different capacity, but working in the classroom. And then also, when I think about organizations and systems, going into church, and my father's a minister, and then these places and my experiences are personal to me, and I want to share them with you. But I want to invite you on the journey to reflect in your life in which you had to free yourself, because that's what this conversation is about. The ways in which I had to free myself when I was suffocating, and to the point of till death do us part. I stayed too long, or better yet, I stayed just long enough until I felt like it was time to go. And for me, going is a growing. It is a space in which you can no longer spread your wings here. You're suffocating. And when it feels like death, it is time to part. So I took that vow and I internalized it and said, until death do us part. Yes, Jeanville, you're suffocating right now. You are at the point of death. And I know that is not what I'm called and created to do, is to die. But actually, we are here to die to ourselves, to die daily. There's a scripture around that. But it is a death that brings renewal. It is a death that brings revival. It is not a death to stay in places that keep you in survival mode. So I want to talk to you about these things that have brought me off my knees into my feet, so that I will repeat behaviors that keep me in a place of suffering, silence, and segregation, to be honest. Because when we are in spaces that are suffocating us, we are segregated not only from people, because when we're in full community with other people, we receive ideas, we receive support that really keeps us grounded, that keeps us aware. But oftentimes we put ourselves in positions, places, and we're serving things that keep us segregated. And I want to integrate you today to your soul, because that's what allowed me to continue to do this walk and this work that I'm doing, which is wholeness. I wasn't always this way. I was segregated for many years in my life, but I began to integrate my own thoughts, my beliefs, and I began to choose myself each day. So the first point I do have some notes here, because as you can see, I can go on for a while in my own space and conversation, but I do have some points that I want to make, and I want to share them with you. The first one is recognize the death before the burial. Recognize the death before the burial. I would say, what parts of my identity in this moment have I outgrown? Again, I talked about staying in places. Sometimes you stay in jobs longer than you should. Sometimes you may stay in a relationship. You may stay in an area. You may stay in a conversation too long. And in this moment, we just become present and say, have I outgrown this conversation? Have I outgrown this relationship? And when we take vows in marriage, and when we're in friendships for a very long time, or when we're on a job, because I want to say this, in 2009, I got married and I got divorced. I left my ex left me technically, but then I left because we had been separated twice before, and he came back. But this time I knew there was no coming back, because I knew at this point, till death do us part, I was dying in parts and pieces of me where I could not freely be myself. And when that happened, I looked in the mirror, because I do love myself, and I have been on a journey of reviving myself for many years. I wouldn't say I was suffering silence. See, people are different. I'm built a little different. In my silent moments, I was in the mountain. Sometimes I was in the valley, but when I say mountain, my mind was always on the most high. See, I put my mind in these elevated spaces that allowed me to create space within to really think and make really conscious decision, because conscious decisions means, Jeanville, what are you doing? I was in the present moment. I would ask myself these questions. So in 2024, when I packed up everything with my two daughters and returned back to the United States, because I was living in Mexico for a while, I was freeing myself, because again, till death do us part, I was dying. I was dying. In 2014, I'll go back some years when I was teaching. I was 8 years as a school teacher, making $30,000, hadn't received a raise, and went till death do us part. At the highlight of my career, loving everything that I was doing, I had to take a trip across the border, actually across a couple states, and moved to Maryland and DC. I began to get paid what I believe I was at least worth at that time in my life. And that was another journey. It's not a knock to any person, place, or thing. It is bringing ourselves aware of who we are in the moment to allow ourselves to make some conscious decisions. So again, I left these systems or relationships because I knew. And even if it's not a relationship, sometimes we're grieving things that are gone. You know, grieve, but understand, embrace the grace, and give yourself a sweet taste of who you are. Grieving is a process. But one thing, just because we miss something, we do not have to return. And I mean that. So really think about it. If you're on this conversation with me, I hope that you are receiving something in this moment. I want to remind you, till death do us part means when you get to a point where you are suffocating and you feel like you are about to be buried, because people will try to bury you with their thoughts. They will try to bury you with their own values and beliefs. They will try to bury you with their own issues. But be reminded, go within. There are some tissues that we are created. I'm talking about the issues of the tissues inside of our soul, our cellular level, where we have control and we can make decisions based on how we feel, because we know that is real. For me, it was when I would feel a certain way. So be reminded that you can revive yourself before the burial, okay? Don't be buried. We might feel like we're about to face death, but we cannot be buried here, friends. So revive yourself. It's revival time. Matter of fact, this video happens to be posted on Easter Sunday, and it just felt good to talk about. We know Jesus said on the third day he rose. And when we rise, we understand it may be to someone else's surprise, but it's not to my surprise. When I was making these decisions, I wasn't surprised at myself because I knew the journey I had been on. See, when you're in a dark space and the lid is closed and you feel like you're about to die, nobody understands all the things that you're thinking, all the things that you're doing, all the plans that you're making and creating in your mind. But one thing about life, we can make plans, but God has bigger plans for us. So when you make a choice to revive yourself, just lift your hands and say, one more choice, one more day, and one more step forward, and you will find yourself in places that feel like heaven right here on earth. And I am off topic. Not really. I'm off topic. I'm going to get back to the points. The first one was recognize the death before the burial. Ask yourself the question, okay? The second one is grieve what was and grace what is. That's when I kind of alluded to and talked about when you feel a certain way, doesn't mean you need to return to that relationship. It doesn't mean you need to return to that job, that conversation, pick up the phone and have the call. You can embrace the memories, but the memories are there to remind you that it was not all bad. It was also part of your choices, your decision. I don't regret decisions that I made. I don't regret getting married. I don't regret becoming a teacher. I don't regret any of those things because, be honest, for me, all of these things were intentional and I enjoyed them and I learned so many things along the way. I left the church system in my 20s. I had been in this particular denomination all my life, born into it in Vallejo, California. It's called the Body of Jesus Christ. Met some beautiful people. It taught me, to embrace cultures. That's exactly what that journey did. It taught me to understand God in a bigger, I would say more of it's a oneness. It is a oneness. It is a oneness to me when it comes to humanity. And that experience in that denomination or organization really helped me with that. So everything that I've been through has allowed me to reflect and learn. The things that we go through, ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you, it is not that we go through them. I say we grow through them. We grow. Growth is a process and it is very intentional. We look outside at Mother Nature and we look at the beautiful trees, the birds and the bees, the seeds that are planted every day in the fields. This stuff is not by happenstance. It is by circumstance, meaning to be circumcised. We know what that is. That's to, when a baby is born, intentionally to peel back the skin, intentionally. Everything is intentional in your life, and it's intentionally done for a reason. It starts with birth, everything. So live with intention and grieve what was and grace what is. I would say grieve with honor, not shame, and honor the places you've been, honor the things that you've done. Give yourself the grace. Sometimes I was sitting in shame. I was sitting in pity and sitting in tears and feeling like, Janville, what could you have done differently? I got to a point in my life, I said, Janville, you did all that you knew to do with the tools that you have. And that's why I'm sharing with you tools that really has helped me grow into the woman that I am today. I'm far from perfect. I don't even believe in perfection, but I do believe in progression. With no struggle, there is no progression. I believe that's our late, great Frederick Douglass quote. You'll hear me quote a lot of things because I have been on a journey and learning from great leaders in books, in communities, through podcasts, and I invite you to do that. Oftentimes, the things that we need most cannot come from our circle. It doesn't come from our family. I love family. I believe it's a great foundation. I love T.D. Jakes says family is the arena in which we learn. It's the gymnasium in which we learn love, how to love. When you with someone or when you see people that are hurt, all you gotta do is look at their family dynamics. And that's what I had to do for a very long time. I said, Janva, you're this way because you were rooted and grounded in God's love. You saw your mother love. You saw your sister's love. You saw your dad love to the best of his ability. And even though in times in our life we may look and question someone's love, we still can be reminded of who we are and what love can we bring to the situation. I'm here to remind you, you are love. Truth is love. Love is light. God is love. There are so many different words we can use that's interchangeable, but you have the power to move and shift the atmosphere. You have that power with your presence. So when you feel like you are about to death and die and death is knocking, revive yourself with love. All I'm talking about is, although I'm giving you tips, but this is love. I'm speaking your love language, my love language. We know the love language books. I love that talks about in relationships. What's your love language? Well, mine will forever be love. And we can have more conversations about what love looks like and feels like, what we've experienced, because that's what we love based on what we've learned. Okay. The third thing I would say is choose revival over routine. You know, freedom is not found in rebellion, it is found in resurrection. And oftentimes we're just constantly doing, for me, in these habitual states where I'm just doing the same thing over and over and over. You know, I do that in my fitness routine, routine. Sometimes you just have to break it up. I'm in a different season of weight gaining. Actually, I want to gain muscle. And that is, I had to break up the routine. I had to break up the habits and say, Janva, what are you doing? Stop with the routine and let's get to reviving myself. Reviving means put the mask on yourself first. Reviving means make choices that says no to them and yes to you. Reviving sometimes means just sitting still. And yes, reviving also means leave the situation, leave the person, place, or thing, leave the conversation, leave the job, or stay on the job and allow it to be a test. Stay in the relationship if you can work through it together, or you can work through it with a friend, or you can work through it with a family member. Continue to talk. I'm not against relationships. I am for healthy relationships with self. So whatever that is, and relationships first start with self, I'm very intentional about that, because for so long I'm in these relationships that involved other people. But I was like, what is the problem? And I realized when I looked in the mirror, I was the problem, because I did not have my own values and beliefs and principles, which I'm really intentional about living by, principles that I was living and loving based on. Because see, living is loving. I always say live intentionally full every day. Also love intentionally full every day. That's an acronym for life. Live intentionally full every day and love intentionally full every day. And when we can do that every day, when we're in the presence of other people, but most importantly, when we are in the presence of ourselves and we go to bed at night, we have given everything we know to give. And it's not in a give of a struggle give. It is in a presence. You are truly a gift to this world, and don't let nobody unwrap you with their own lies, with their deceit. Don't let no one unwrap you with their values and beliefs. Unwrap yourself. If people are unwrapping you, make sure it's with love. Make sure when they removing layers off you, honey, that thing feels good. Now, it won't always feel good, because love is also truth. Some people can't handle the truth. When you start unwrapping them, they want to cover back up and then start pulling out bows. Well, baby, let me tell you, this is a fair exchange. If someone wants to unwrap you, make sure that they're able to be unwrapped, okay? So the three things we're going to remind ourselves: recognize the death before the burial, grieve what was and grace what is, grieve what it was and grace what is, and then choose revival over routine. Revive yourself. Stop in your tracks and ask yourself some questions. Stop in your tracks. Take a deep breath. Stop in your tracks and revive yourself. You can rise again. Jesus was a great blueprint of this. On the third day, he rose. Despite the circumstances, despite what it looks like, I want to invite you to a revival season. It's not quite August. It's not revival season in the church world. When we grew up Baptist, my grandmother was Baptist, James Chapel Baptist Church in Fort Mill, South Carolina. I used to love to go to their revivals. But what I learned is that every day is a day of revival. Every day is a day of Thanksgiving. We don't wait on holidays to celebrate the goodness of how we're created to be and who we're created to be. Some people have it down pack how to do things. But I want to remind you, we can get it down pack how to be who we are created to be. And I always say that is created, never duplicated. My name is Jeanville, and I appreciate you taking the time to be here with me today. If you like it, if you want to share with someone and they need to hear this message, please share. I want to continue to show up with you and for you, and most importantly for myself, because I'm on this journey with you. GSG Living is all about showing up with grit each and every day, doing the things that I say it's a muscle, using our muscle of grit. We have to practice and do the challenging things in our life, and grace is showing up. Grit, style, and grace. Style is your identity, and grace is showing up to give ourselves grace and others as well. To give ourselves grace and others as well. Be rooted in love and led by truth. Be rooted in love and led by truth. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next week.